Of course.
Of course.
All right, and we're live.
Welcome to Fightsword Radio. I'm your host, Jake, a swordsmith, armorer, and fighter. Here, we discuss all the same fight sword topics you've heard before, but in ways you've never imagined. Is your Nippon steel even glorious? Pain is the base currency of fighting. Let me tell you, judging by how wrong he thought I was doing it, his neck beard must be on all the way down to the well-worn cushion of his armchair. Always remember, fight sword is love, fight sword is life.
All right, I'm pretty down with that intro. I just came up with that.
I dig it.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing you through your mic, though, very well.
Yeah, let me get my gains. How's that?
There it is. That's better.
All right, get you some gains. Those gains. All right, so we're back. We got me, we got Jake, we got John, my Renaissance man, and then we got Grant, the homewrecker Holmes, also known as the aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Get up on your mic a little bit. Yeah. And you can, move it as you need to. Yeah. You'll be fine.
I thought we changed that to Heartbreaker.
Heartbreaker? I'm down with Heartbreaker.
I didn't choose either of them, but I prefer Heartbreaker over Homewrecker.
Get the mic about in your mouth. I'll get your gains a little bit, but
It's like talking into the mic.
yeah. So Grant, by way of introduction, Grant is one of our teammates. He's a really solid grappler. He does some great longsword. He's been doing armored fighting with us about 3 years now, and he's got a pretty good background that serves him well in armored fighting. So why don't you take me through your background? Like, what have you done prior to?
Okay, so I guess I'll start at the beginning. I grew up my entire adolescent, young childhood as a wrestler. So I wrestled for like 12 years, and that was mainly what I did.
Nice.
I did a lot of other sports and athletic things in general. Played basketball, soccer, baseball, you name it as a kid. Everything but football, or American football.
Yeah.
And then really, I just kind of did a lot of self-training. I'd go in here and there for like a little bit to do a variety of things like karate, a little bit of like,
Aren't you also
grappling.
in the armed forces?
I am. I'm in the Army, but I mean,
It's not a trigger pulling operative necessarily, but
I didn't do a lot of the Army combatives. I did the 2 weeks you get in basic training, and then like a summer of combative stuff.
okay.
For a while after that.
So is that like a course anybody in the Army can voluntarily take?
Pretty much.
Okay.
It's the upper level combatives courses that are really hard to get. I mean, I asked for years and years to go into it, never sent me.
Okay.
I know that was just a slot or budget thing, but anyway, I did a lot of mostly self-training, just picking up, watching videos, testing things out, working on the bag myself.
Yeah.
But a lot of, I was just, as far as like athleticism and coordination, I picked a lot of that up from other sports, and then dance, believe it or not. I did a lot of hip-hop and ballroom dance.
Actually, you and I both share that. 16 years classically trained dance, and in every facet I have ever endeavored to do, if it is physical, dance has made it better.
Oh, no doubt. Having a dancing background has helped, especially with footwork, coordination, balance.
Yeah.
That's...
Everybody I've met that has a dance background, like Jesse Kalahi out in California, big guy, 250-pound Hawaiian guy, and he's built, like he's not fat, he's built, and the dude's fast. He's really light on his feet. I'm like, stop breaking the rules. That's not how this works. You're big and you're slow. Stop taking the one thing I'm good at. All right, so you got the dance, then you got just general athletics, lots of wrestling, and like that became evident the first time you and I grappled when you were in Zach's terrible armor.
Yeah.
I go for a leg hook, and it was just the worst leg hook you've ever seen, and I end up just like flying through the air.
Actually, it gets better than that. So the first time we ever saw Grant grapple. Now, admittedly, I've improved since this time.
Yeah.
I armored up, he armors up, and he proceeds to throw me around the room like I'm a rag doll.
Yeah.
So categorically well.
Yeah.
You literally look at me like, you literally looked at me like, are you throwing yourself to the ground?
Oh no!
Right? Dude, it was so one-sided. I was oh gosh, I will not forget that. But
yeah, solid grappling. And then when did you? So I know you're doing judo and jiu-jitsu now. When did that start?
So about 9 months ago.
Okay.
I'd been meaning to go to a gym. There's only so much you can do self-training. You hit a plateau, hit the roof, and you just can't go anywhere from there. And watching video, there's certain things you can't get on your own.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to go to a gym. I need to learn from people who know more than me, and I need to spar outside of armor.
Yeah.
And so about 9 months ago, I started going to an MMA gym, and I've been doing a lot of jiu-jitsu, judo, and Muay Thai.
Okay.
And definitely, it has helped. I've learned a lot. I already kind of went in having a sword fighting and armor combat background. It did help a lot.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things I learned doing armor combat that kind of translated into my judo.
Yeah.
And then having the wrestling background on top of that. So martial arts all just kind of bleed into each other.
Yeah.
And
totally.
And it helps. And the more you do and the better you get and understand a variety of martial arts, it has helped me across all of them.
Yeah, totally. So that was a couple of the points that I wanted to do. You actually brought up some of the points I wanted to discuss is so you'd mentioned, what armored fighting had taught you about grappling that you take with you into judo. But let's go for a little further back. What did
if I may? So one of the critiques I received from somebody was, before we get wax philosophical and learn how awesome you are, we should state for anyone who just tuned in what we intend to cover, because if we don't, lose interest and they never get past 10 minutes.
Fair enough. So, Grant being a tier 1 grappler, and he hit the ground running as a grappler in this sport where in the melees, it's inherently grapple heavy. You win by getting your opponent on the ground, 3 points of contact, right? So therefore it begets grappling, and Grant did very well. So the interest here is to discuss, we're going to discuss a couple of points. We're going to talk about how his previous grapple experience translated to armored fighting, and then how armored grappling translates into the stuff he's doing now, and then how what he's learning translates back to armored fighting. And then we're going to totally do a gear shift change. We're going to talk about katanas and longswords and how they fight each other, and I've got video prepared for that we'll bring in for that.
Okay.
So let's hit that first. So wrestling wrestling going into armored fighting. What were the similarities? What were the differences?
Well, first and foremost, the armor weighs a lot. Yeah. And so you're just moving with all of that weight on you. The first thing I noticed, the very first time I got an armor, I noticed that, aside from the fact that it didn't fit me, I couldn't
it fits
move
no one.
the way I wanted to.
Okay.
And you see this a lot of dudes that come in, especially good fighters and other arts and whatnot. They come in and they put on the armor and they try to move like they didn't have armor on. Yeah. And it's a huge adjustment. Some people catch on quick, and other ones, they take a while to adjust. But I couldn't move the way I wanted to move. Okay. And that was the first big kind of slap in the face.
You wouldn't know for how often you threw me to the ground, Graham. Just saying. Just saying.
Just rub a little more salt in that bruised ego.
It's like, I wasn't even prepared for my armor yet, and...
So let's actually give me just three major differences, like the three biggest differences that you saw in your movement and your grappling when you put an armor on.
The first one was it was harder to be aware of everything. I mean, both visually and then feeling. So when you're grappling, say you're in a wrestling match, you can feel the other person with your arm, with your hands, with your head. You can feel the person. It's harder to feel the pressure of another person's body when you're feeling it through wool, linen, steel, their steel, linen, whatever. So it was just a lot harder to tell, okay, what part of the body am I grabbing? How hard am I grabbing? Do I have a good grip? It was just really hard to kind of be aware of both me and my opponent's just body position.
Yeah, the sense of touch. Well, there's a lot of sensory deprivation, but in that sort of thing, I talk to jiu-jitsu guys, and they'll end up in whatever position, and I hear them talk. They'll close their eyes so they can just listen to what other senses are telling them about what's going on, so they can troubleshoot the problem. And can't do that. Can't do that here.
As a wrestler, I remember being in high school, and we would actually train doing stuff with our eyes closed. Because, at least my wrestling coach in high school believed that you should be able to wrestle with your eyes closed. Yeah. If you got sweat, blood, or whatever, you can't open your eyes. You should be able to know where the other person's body is.
And you really can't. It's a sensory deprivation tank that you're in. It's like fighting inside a giant fat guy.
Yeah, it's really hard.
That's good.
I've gotten better at it over time. Yeah. But it's still far more difficult than if you have nothing on your body.
Okay. Yeah, that's
very little. So.
Yeah, that's a good one, and that totally know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that was the first big kind of adjustment, was not being able to feel my opponent like I was used to. Okay. The second one was obviously my balance and distribution of weight. Mm-hmm. So, and we've mentioned this before, your center of balance goes up.
Yeah, it's like in your sternum.
It's right where the sternocleidomastoids meet, right here.
Yep.
Yeah, so rather than being down in my hips, where I'm used to it, it goes way up into my chest, and so I had to adjust in how I just kind of positioned my body, the angles that I moved, my hip and head, just kind of positioning.
Like your body parts relative to other body parts.
Yeah, I had to make adjustments because if you're used to doing one thing one way all the time and it works, and then all of a sudden that gets thrown off because you have 20 pounds on your head.
Yeah.
You can't do the same things, or you expect to keep your balance when normally. So you expect to keep it when you would lose it because you have armor on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, if that's kind of confusing.
No, yeah. You're used to, like, what it takes to put you off balance is you're very used to a certain threshold, and that threshold is much lower once you wear that metal exoskeleton.
Yeah, I mean, throw anybody in armor for the first time, and the moment their head kind of moves back a foot, falling over, because they're not used to that. Whereas normally, like, especially if you're a wrestler, you could bend your head all the way over to the mat, and you're kind of used to it, but you can't do that. In armor. And so getting a feel for your balance was a huge deal for me.
Okay. So, and then we'll go with one more, and we'll keep moving.
Okay, so aside from those two...
How about, like, manipulating your opponent's body? How did that change with armor, especially gauntlets, where this is gone?
So that kind of bleeds in. The third thing would be just the weapons and armor that you're wearing. So, for example, I can't grab wrists. It's hard, a lot of wrestlers, grab behind the head or on the neck, on the shoulder, behind the tricep.
Yeah.
It's so much harder to do that.
And I wish you the best of luck trying to grab my helmet. Big
Seriously,
bulbous
dude.
thing.
It's like attached, so it's like you can't, like, kind of get around the back of it. Like, as you kind of get around the back of a helmet, and you get some purchase, you can move it forward, and it gets easier to get that head control.
But mine's bolted from the front and back, and so
it's trying to manipulate your entire body. Yeah,
it's wonderful.
It's bullshit.
So you kind of grab onto slippery steel, and then you're grabbing it with either just a gauntlet on, which is far different.
You don't have that.
You have
this. Yeah.
Oh, and then let alone if you have a weapon in your hand, all of a sudden you can't grab onto anything, and so it really changes the game in such a huge way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I'm circling back around. I'm sorry, I don't mean to do that, but as someone who studies arms and armor over time.
Oh my God! Who the hell cares?
I care. Our viewers care.
Please continue.
Well, I'm the only one on our team who's currently fighting in a tournament helmet. And the style of fighting we do is tournament fighting. So it makes sense that they would make a meta helmet for it. It has the most amount of breath, the most amount of vision, and it's the hardest to get a hold of my head and manipulate. That's all.
Yeah.
Just saying that they lived in the dark ages, but they knew their stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. In
fact, I can go get it.
Yeah. Let's just keep going. We'll keep talking.
Wartime armor is different than tournament armor.
Yeah, tournament armor and tournament weapons are different from battle armor and battle weapons. Case in point, jousting. Jousting armor. What you see in, like, a Knight's Tale, for example. In the myth that armor was heavy and you couldn't move in it and you needed a crane to get you in the saddle. That last one's BS. But, it was armor that was designed for sport jousting. And, field armor for being on a horse, it is more built up, but very different objects for sure. Yeah,
but even just the myth of moving around in armor, it makes it far more difficult.
Yeah.
But if you spend enough time in armor and you get used to it and you know what your limitations are, you can do far more than you'd expect.
Yeah.
In fact, the past year, I've been actually kind of
get that on there, man.
Dispelling the idea of the difference between the impossible and the very difficult.
Yeah.
In armor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you did a tornado kick.
Yeah, there are things that I used to think I could not do in armor because it's just impossible. You can't do that with that much weight. Your balance is too off. And then I started to think, actually, maybe some of these things are possible.
Yeah.
And they were really just seeing things like people and like dudes in Europe throwing high kicks.
Yeah.
People's faces. I'm like, what? They can get their leg up that high?
Yeah.
But seeing someone do like a flying knee into a group, I'm like, what? You can do that in armor? If they can do that, well, I guess what else can I do in armor?
Yeah.
And so I've just kind of been experimenting, largely the last year, and I've actually been surprised at what I can do in armor that I used to think I couldn't do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something for folks to consider. Is if you're losing your macro movements when you get armor, then there's something wrong with the armor. You should have full range of motion in your shoulders. You should be able to close your elbows. You should be able to bend down and touch your toes. You should,
And so right now, my armor's fighting me for that.
Yeah. It's a bit long.
Bit wide.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite fit me properly.
Yeah, and having the armor built from separate continents, that's a bit tough. I always prefer, if I have to build the casts, I will. But if I can build the live fit, makes me happy. Yeah, that thing's cool, man. I cannot believe how hot these mics are. We're all like watching it.
I was just looking at the helmet. Leave it up to a bunch of armored fighters to just stare at.
We'll do that. We'll do that, man. We're like pigeons
eyes.
staring at a crusty potato chip on a parking lot. And just, mine.
People can do it to cars, then why can't I do it to a piece of armor?
I'm fascinated by all the angles, man. It's so bulbous and weird. Why would they do that? And then you begin to see where most shots come in at a 45-degree angle or this angle, and that's where you're most likely to skip.
Yeah.
And the fact that it comes down lower and sits on my shoulders, those world-ending shots on top just put the pressure in my shoulders. And then if you want to manipulate this, you got to somehow get your weapon over this giant thing.
Well, yeah. It just
strapped to your chest as well. It takes the strain off your neck.
Strapped in the back, strapped in the front, and I don't know why more people don't find them, quite honestly.
Well, head movement.
That's
the
for
price
duels,
you pay.
it's a bit rough, which is why my next helmet's going to have it's fully articulated. The gorget comes up and then locks. Oh, the gorget actually comes up and lames and locks with the helmet, so it opens up and then comes down and locks into it. So I'll have all of this motion.
Yeah, you kind of do what I used to do. So my old helm, I had to turn my whole body.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're Batmaning it
To be able to look around.
Yeah.
Whereas, my current helmet, I can turn my head. I have that lateral movement that I used to not have in this, at all.
Yeah, that's one of the important things for, being able to keep those macro movements. Your armor has to fit. I'm glad I make all my own stuff on it.
Speaking of armor fitting and doing movements the first brigandine that I had, I could not lift my leg more than about waist level. I was always running the risk of just hitting people in the groin. So I didn't really like kicking a lot. And then I switched to my current brig, which could fit better, but if it's a world of difference from my first one. And I can throw my foot up on someone's face. Like I can get it that high where I used to not think I could do that.
Yeah, that brig is not great.
The biggest difference was the armor.
Oh, totally.
And getting used to the balance, but the armor for sure.
Yeah, getting a good fit. Well, that's one of those really annoying things. Your body changes a lot your first year and a half doing this, even if you're already in good shape, because different muscle groups work differently, and so it's like I don't know. A lot of my old stuff just doesn't fit. It helps that I'm 40 pounds heavier than I was when I started. 40 pounds of lean meat.
And the bottom of your legs to your ankles are like as big as my wrists.
Dude, they're tiny. I got little itty bitty chicken legs.
I don't know where you put that weight. It genuinely does.
I have no idea. I don't know. I'm stronger and I'm faster.
It doesn't grow in size. It just gets more dense.
Yeah, that's what it is.
We're the same size of jeans I did, so I don't know what it is either. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward then. So we kind of covered going in what the differences were going in. Now taking your grappling out of armored fighting into judo and on the jiu-jitsu mat. How'd that translate? What were the differences there?
Okay, first and foremost, when I go up in like a judo match, I'm not throwing around a 250-pound guy with 70 pounds of armor on him.
Right.
So just the size that the weight that I'm used to, it's so much lighter. And so that was a huge plus for me because I'm like, oh, these people are light. It doesn't take all of my energy just to move someone.
Yeah.
So I can do it for longer. And I really enjoyed that. Just getting used to the heavy strain that armored grappling takes on my body versus doing it in like a gi. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this for a lot longer, and I can be a lot more explosive in what I do. And I have a greater range of movement. I can see everything. I can breathe.
Okay.
So that was a big plus for me. Is just going back down to wearing little gear.
Yeah.
So moving people around. The second thing was I started to just make connections. Moving into armor, just kind of body positioning and whatnot. Because as a wrestler, I was pretty hunched over a lot.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that in the grappling style so you watch a wrestler and then you watch someone doing judo, just kind of the body positioning, especially at the back.
Yeah.
And they both usually have, lower hips and everything, but like the torso and the upper body has a different position.
Okay.
Tournament judo typically doesn't go a lot of, they don't do a lot of leg grabs or anything. And so you don't quite have to worry about someone grabbing, doing an ankle pick on you like you would in wrestling. And so usually wrestlers kind of hang close to the ground.
Okay.
A little more hunched over, whereas like the judo guys, we're grabbing onto each other's lapels and a little bit straighter backs.
Yeah.
And I feel like that transferred over a lot better than wrestling did.
Okay.
I don't know if you've noticed in the way I grapple, my upper body is usually a little more upright. I still keep a low.
Well, you don't want to be pitched forward and hunched over like that in armor because you're working 10 times as hard, and then you get somebody that, one of these bigger guys will just like palm the back of your head and then shove it into the dirt. I
can't say how many times some guy is just like bigger than me, obviously. Taller, just kind of jumped up and tried to shove me down because I was a little hunched over and I put my forehead into his chest.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, getting back to what you're talking about, the difference in the posturing. Judo is, the point of judo is just finding new and exotic ways to slam somebody into the ground hard enough that their bones powder. That's basically judo. Am I wrong?
I wouldn't say you're wrong.
Well, the idea of judo is what hits harder than a person? The earth.
Yeah.
So and that's still true in armor. I will still say it hurts. Yeah. Dude, I have 400 pounds of man and steel falling on me against concrete. Dude, that's worse than getting hit most of the time.
Bare minimum, half the concussions in this sport are people hitting their head on the ground. It's not getting hit by an axe. It's hitting the ground with their head,
The hardest I think I've ever been hit was at FitCon.
Yeah.
And I'm just devastating people with my murder axe. I'm one-shotting them. I dislocated. I took one guy completely out of the fight.
I remember that.
Fight the rest of the tournament. I dropped that guy you were holding, dislocated his hip. He had to be removed by an EMT. I was devastating people with it. And so Lance Hoffman, big dude, just the nicest guy. I'm 6'3", and in my armor, I'm close to 300 pounds. Walks over and picks me up like I'm a misbehaving child in Walmart and walks off with me. My feet aren't even touching the ground. So Lance Hoffman's what, 6'9",
he's 6'7" or
6'10"?
He's huge.
And he's not just tall and lanky. He's
just a big fat brick shithouse.
Well, I wouldn't call him fat, but and in addition to that, he can't feel pain on most of his body because of the dude is a certified badass. He carried his wife down out of like a wildfire.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
And it burned his body, and he just being the badass he was, just carried her to safety, and she was fine. And anyway, so he picks me up, walks off with me, and sits me down in the corner with my kidneys and spine facing the rest of his team.
I'm in danger.
Yeah, dude. I started panicking. I'm not the biggest guy on the team, not the strongest guy on the team, but I'm no slouch.
No,
so normally I
can
get out. Dude, I might as well have been trying to uproot like a tree, like a big oak with my bare hands. He did not budge. And so I start panicking. I drop my weapon and I start working because he's so tall.
Well, you didn't let go of it. You just dropped it out of the way. Yeah.
His armpit's like right here at high level. So I have these spiked gauntlets because they're gothic, and I start working his armpit.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing my hip. I'm throwing my entire body. I'm starting to panic. I'm like, oh my gosh, karma's gonna kill me. My spine, my everything. I'm just really not wanting to be in this position. And I hit him, and I hear this nothing. I'm like, oh crap.
Oh no.
I hit him again, nothing. I'm starting to panic. I hit him a third time, and I hear this grunt, this guttural.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize this, right? Is only my toes were touching the ground, not my heels.
Yeah.
So he drops me. He was just like literally holding me like I was a child. Drops me on the ground and comes towards me, and he is seeing red. And I see this big, I'm looking up to this big man with this big pole arm coming down on my head.
Yeah.
And I kick his foot out at the last second, and he it's like an Indiana Jones thing where I'm trying to run from the thing that's falling, and he just falls on me and crushes me into the ground so completely it actually out-articulated or over-articulated my back plate.
Yeah, I remember that.
I had to bust rivets to get it back into place.
That was so insane. Like it flexed and deformed the whole thing.
He was in his armor. How much do you think he weighs?
Dude, he's easily clearing 400 pounds.
Yeah,
I mean, his armor just because of his size is gonna hit the 110 pound mark easy, and he pushes 300 pounds. I mean, that guy clears 400 pounds easy.
400 pounds of angry man and muscle falling on you, and the only thing behind you is concrete.
We had the hard rubber mats, as if that makes it
as better. If that makes any difference.
John trying to get out of there, like
run.
These pads are like the best thing ever.
Sorry, I kind of took us off topic there for a second.
But yeah, hitting the ground is a bad thing. And yeah, so judo, that's anyway, kind of getting us back to that. That was a good story, but getting us back to that, that's sort of the difference in judo is it's upright. So you see a similarity in armored fighting where you must be upright because of the armor.
Yeah, and you can't afford to, put your knee on the ground or whatnot. So I definitely think judo translates better to armored fighting than wrestling. Though wrestling's all over the place. You can start from a super young age. I mean, how many people, do judo for 12 years versus wrestle for 12 years of their adolescent life? Mm-hmm. And just because it's so readily available in the public schools, and then the ability to compete and whatnot. So having the skills, just the time moving your body in like complex movements like that.
Yeah, close on it.
It definitely translates over. So if you're a wrestler and you start moving into other grappling sports, you have some things to learn and some bad habits to get over. But in general, the movements, the natural just kind of, I guess, intuition to move is there. Yeah. And then picking up judo has definitely helped in my armored combat. And then doing armored combat, I feel like has helped my judo especially. Yeah. Just moving people around, understanding where people put their weight. Yeah. I mean, people can recover from throws a lot, fairly easily when they're not when their center of gravity is lower. And, and they're not wearing tons of armor. You can also grab the person. I recover from throws just by I'll grab a hold of my opponent in some way, like head control, grab a pauldron, something. So when the inevitable throw comes, I have something to hang on to. You've been the victim of this for a long time now.
It's almost like a duet in figure skating, where like the partner throws their partner and they just sort of spin off into air and land. That's what it's like. Like you don't put up a fight. You're like, go ahead, throw me. I'll just twirl away. Yeah, well, it's effective. Like I'm not saying, I'm not ragging on you for it. It's impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
And it makes people very mad.
Awesome.
I love it.
That makes me happy. And you have that in judo where it's like, oh, just grab your gi. I watch like judo videos and like the guy will get the throw, but he's also still got, he's got the under grab or the over grab or whatever. And the benefit of doing judo is obviously that, if you're doing it with a gi, you have more to grab onto. I can get a grip on someone's lapel and stronger than any grip I can get on somebody in armor. Oh, yeah.
Hands grab down. On my pauldron, I mean...
You can't really grab. You can try to, work, you can get some pressure on people in armor, but you can't just grab and hold like you can on someone's lapel.
Yeah, a big problem with that is that the armor isn't... It doesn't move as dynamically and committed to you as clothing does. Clothing, you get a handful of it and pull it tight. So where the shirt goes, I go. But like the armor shifts and rotates on you, and that's part of what makes armor makes especially Western armor work so well for its purpose is that it takes a hit and it'll sort of shift as a unit and diffuse that inertia. So that makes using it as a handhold exponentially more difficult because it's like you might even have a hold of the armor maybe, but it doesn't mean you have a hold of them. Not really. That's actually okay. So let's actually talk about the swim under. If you're wanting to use your body to manipulate somebody else's upper torso and pull them off, a good way to do that is get your shoulder in their armpit, right?
So typically, I've found that, and this is kind of where parts of judo are very helpful and parts of like wrestling are very helpful. So for example, a wrestler doesn't have clothing to hold on to, and so you just kind of have to find those places on the body to just kind of hook your hand, such as behind the tricep or up on the shoulder or around the head.
Okay.
Those kinds of things, and I kind of do things like that when I'm in armor.
Yeah.
So I typically go for some kind of over-under. And so that's
Yeah.
either over one shoulder and kind of under the arm, under the shoulder of another person. I might kind of go a double over if I can, mainly because I grapple with a shield.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different.
So you do that a lot.
And that complicates things way more.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, what kind of weapon you have. But just in general, I try to keep some. So if you notice, like in judo, when you're doing a throw, you're not moving the entire torso all in one direction, or you're kind of doing cross movements. So if I'm moving your upper body one direction, I'm typically moving the lower body a different direction.
Yeah.
Or I'm moving I'm moving this shoulder one direction and your other shoulder the opposite direction.
Yeah. So
So this push-pull movement that you're kind of doing on somebody, I'm doing the same principle, but instead of grabbing onto the clothing, I'm trying to like hook onto a shoulder or a tricep or a head, whatever it is, but generally some kind of opposing movement.
Yeah.
On them.
And I've actually this actually just clicked for me about a month ago, finally. So I'm anxious to start grappling with you again once your knee heals and I can start, really working this. Is basically I divide the human body. There's a line that goes down the center vertical, and there's a line that goes horizontal at the hips. And it's basically just making those 4 quadrants move opposite directions, and that's how you take people down. That's a fundamental. That's like a fundamental concept that makes judo work. And
it's not just judo. I think it's grappling sports in general.
Okay.
I mean, your body can only do so much.
Yeah.
It can only move in certain ways. And so whether you're wearing clothes, whether you're wearing armor, whatever it is, if you're grappling with each other, when 2 people are grappling, your body is only going to be able to move so much while maintaining a level of balance.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice that there's a lot of crossover between grappling sports in general. It's just the way you apply pressure and movement on a person's body.
Yeah. So just to kind of sum that up, think of like, a lot of Western languages all basically root back to Latin, right? So, so Italian, Spanish, English.
It's the Romance language.
Yeah, the Romance language. Yeah. They so there's a certain kind of commonality where they start to overlap, and you can kind of see the fundamental similarities that is a single binding thread in all these languages. And that basically dividing the body into quadrants like that, that's the same with grappling sports. That's the fundamental sort of root language
structure.
That makes
work.
Yeah, and that's why, like, okay, wrestling, there's this, and this is where it's kind of similar to judo, is the way in which you might manipulate the body, but then there's these variables with clothing, not clothing,
weapons, armor.
Yeah.
Shoes, no shoes.
Yeah.
Size differences. We don't have weight classes.
Yeah, and I'm fine with it that way.
Me too.
Yeah, there's not enough of us for it to need. Here's the thing: I'd have nobody to fight.
You'd fight John.
Catlett?
Yeah.
He's 140 pounds. I'm 190. 195.
When we first met, you were what, $160?
$155.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, but that was in 2014. So I couldn't fight him now. It'd be too heavy to fight him.
I mean, if the sport grows large enough,
Yeah.
I could probably see, at least for like pro fights, one-on-one.
Yeah.
Pro fights,
Totally.
yeah.
Totally.
Light and heavyweights, above 200 pounds, below 200 pounds,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, I think a lot of the
Sport's not big enough for that right now.
Well, I mean, armor is such it's enough of an equalizer that, like, in cage fighting, you do weight cuts so you can be up 8 pounds on your opponent, because that is a big deal, right? Or in wrestling, you cut weight, and then so you'd have like 8 pounds on your opponent, hopefully, because that's going to make a difference. But I feel like armor is enough of an equalizer. I mean, heck, even,
It is and it isn't. I think in the grand melees, it's big enough. It is and it isn't. I think in the grand melees, it definitely is an equalizer. But in duels, we'll actually watch a fight here and critique it. And there's 3 times where you take a shot at my head, and my shield on my sword catches it, and you come this close to scoring a point. If we were the same height, you probably would have scored that point.
Sure, but I mean, the point that I'm making by that is that, like, 10 pounds of difference just isn't enough.
No, 10 pounds
armor.
isn't enough.
Yeah, because I mean,
50 pounds, I can feel that in armor, but 10.
Yeah, you don't feel it, and it's just, I mean, the armor does so much to neutralize the value of strikes. I mean, you know, and
You cut armor
It's pretty
weight.
cool though, because we'd be like
Yeah.
the 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, all the way up to 600 pounds.
Yeah.
Because we can field dudes on the field that are in their armor. About that, would you say?
600,
don't know,
no way.
600.
600 pounds, not a chance.
What about that one dude who's like 7'2"?
Oh,
That we
Cousteau.
saw-
Cousteau out in California.
How much do you think he weighs in his armor?
Oh, he clears 400 probably.
450.
I don't think
Is he
he's not
450?
breaking 500.
You don't think he's breaking 500?
No way.
Okay,
No
fair
way.
enough.
Yeah,
Maybe it just
The
feels-
biggest dude I've ever seen was at FitCon a couple years ago.
that was Cousteau.
That was Cousteau.
No. There was that other dude that dwarfed. There's a photo of it on Instagram.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Dwarf Simon.
Dwarf Simon?
Simon looks like he's
Some-
5
oh,
foot
from the
nothing.
Midwest.
Iron Horde, yeah.
Yeah.
That dude boxed me up into the corner. I couldn't do anything.
Yeah, well, that sucked. I'm like, where is Grant's influence on this field? And I see it pinned in the corner. I'm like, well, I know I can't pain that guy out. Shit.
I had
That
never
was
seen
around
anything
me and
'cause
Ryan left in like.
People
the
tend to be
ends.
like tall, so they look lanky, or they tend to be short and wide. He was just
Massive.
massive. He wasn't particularly anything. He was just a big dude.
Yeah.
I couldn't grab him because you couldn't get around him.
Yeah, it was weird to watch. He got pinned up in a corner. It was the gold medal round. They're fighting the demons, and
Yeah.
Bamm Bamm starts laying into him, and like Bamm Bamm is like this, like
Punching up.
punching way up. And Bill's, I mean, he's 6'4". He's
Yeah.
huge. You know, it's just 6'4", 280 pounds with abs. You know, blue eyes, blonde hair, square jaw. Just this Viking god. But when he moves, he looks like a big, doofy Labrador, 6-month-old
Kind of
Labrador.
like a bloodhound, like they never move on purpose. But somehow they somehow get to the direction they're going. You know what I mean?
Well, it's like
Yeah.
it's like watching a dog in like 1950s Disney animation, a dog run.
Yes. It's like there's movement. I guess that's running. We're gonna move the background behind you.
Run.
Yeah. He'll hit you though. Oh
yeah,
man,
it's
if he
hard.
manages to connect.
God help us all if that guy actually takes a boxing class and learns to throw a punch. He's knocked people out through their helmets. Like he's done
With a punch, which
With a punch,
for
yeah.
those of us listening, there's a reason they didn't just walk around punching people in their armor and they hit with weapons. You're not supposed to be able to do that. He does.
Yeah.
And pretty consistently.
Yeah, it's
It's ridiculous.
it's stupid, stupid.
I mean, I've taken a lot of punches, and they can be hard. I've given a lot of punches as well.
Yeah,
Yeah. But I'm like
nothing
punching
hits
gaps.
harder than a pole axe, in my opinion.
yeah. Well, like I mean, you know, if you get a good stick on a punch, it can do some damage. But man, I mean, just physics, man. You have that. You have 6 pounds moving 35, 40 miles an hour and connecting with your head.
So, as someone who primarily punches with a shield, it's not that I'm dealing out pain. I'm transferring force.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
move
just-
people on the
People
battlefield.
don't just receive. When I punch someone in the face, it may hurt them,
Yeah.
but more than anything, it's going to move them.
Yeah.
So when I'm moving their head suddenly a foot and a half,
That's what sucks. Yeah.
throws their balance off very suddenly. Next you know, their feet are up in the air.
Yeah.
It's not that it hurt. It's just, I mean, it works for the sport.
Yeah.
Getting someone on the ground. But I'm not just going to pain someone out.
No.
Unless their head is stuck in between my shield and a hard space. Then I've dealt a concussion that way.
No kidding.
But not
You
with...
punch really hard.
Who'd you concuss?
So I concussed Justice back in
Which is hard to do.
2018.
His helmet's like a...
Well, it's because his head was in the corner, and I threw there was literally nowhere for his head to go, and so I just sandwiched his head.
He just had to
between
take
the
all that.
wrist.
No kidding. That's so
That
weird. I'd have
concussion
thought.
that he got?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my punch.
I would have thought that that would actually make it better. Like if the head doesn't move and it's like the helmet takes all of it.
He doesn't put a lot of impact foam in his helmets. He relies on the wool. And
Wool breaks down so fast.
but that's the problem. When wool's new and freshly felted, it's an exceptional effective means of dispersing kinetic force, but it breaks down fairly quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me.
Well,
Now that makes
they had
sense.
a new guy at FitCon last year, and we were doing helmet check, and like there was this little square of concussion foam that was all up in the helmet, all up in the point of the bassinet where like your head isn't going to be, and it was basically, some of us do that just to give a middle finger to that rule, that you have to have anti-concussion foam. It doesn't matter how much or where it is as long as it's there, and that's what they did. And then like you can very, very clearly feel the wall of the helmet through the liner. I'm like, this isn't going on the field. This isn't like even if the refs had let it, I'd have pulled regional commander card and been like, no, this is a TBI that changes your personality forever.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, that was way too much.
I think a part of the problem with shield punches in general, so if we're talking about like force and pain and whatnot, it's just that it's not concentrated enough to really hurt. What it does do is it disorients people.
Yes.
Yes.
I gotta say, you punch someone in the face, all of a sudden what you're seeing changes, your balance is off.
Sometimes it will shift the helmet, so like now I can only see out of this corner and I can't see anything here.
You get really used to, your brain gets used to forming a picture based on the position of your oculars and your breathes. So when that shifts, you're blind for a second because your brain is trying to make sense of that picture.
So not only just moving, and if they don't fall over, it's disorienting enough to be a huge benefit on the field.
Yeah.
And so punching people, like, I mean, I do it all the time. Yeah. And it works, but it's not necessarily the pain that's going to make someone take a knee. It's usually they get disoriented enough to where I can throw them. Yeah. Someone else hits them, throws them, whatever. Or they just straight up fall over because their balance got thrown off so bad.
So we're talking in circles.
Yeah. No, that's good. I was going to try to move us on.
No.
All right, yeah. So I want to just revisit for a couple more minutes the translating armored grappling into judo and jiu-jitsu. I kind of feel like basically making those body manipulations without the benefit of being able to grab something. And with the armor, the armor slides against it, so it's hard to get good purchase, so you can properly manipulate. I feel like it's basically body manipulation hard mode, doing it in armor. Would you agree with that?
It's definitely, I feel like it's more complex.
Okay.
In that aspect. But so at the same time, it does simplify in other ways.
Okay.
Because, for example, we're not... How do I say this? Because there's only so much you can do.
There's only so much you can do.
There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So it's not that...
It's not like jiu-jitsu where it's a virtually limitless vista of possibilities.
When you're not wearing armor, there's more things you can do, which complicates the whole game.
Can I get you guys some water or anything?
Oh yeah, sure. Glass of water would be great.
Take one.
Yeah.
Do you want fizzy water?
No, regular water's great.
The difficult thing about armored grappling is that you are limited in what you can do, and what you can do is harder to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I feel like it gets hard. Is this that it's harder to do the things that you want to do, and there's less things that you can do, and so, or if you want to do some of those more complex things, it's a lot harder. You have to get, you have to tailor your armor better, or just get used to certain, imbalances.
Your problems,
that you have.
I'll comment on that real quick. So, like a good one is like the swim unders. That's really easy in my Japanese armor because it's so low profile. I don't have an elbow fan that grabs shit.
Oh.
Yeah. You went down to the counter from that doofy, disc fan.
Yeah, having that big fan, that disc one poking out, that definitely complicated it. It would get caught on things, or I'd try to gain a dominant position on someone, but it's like, okay, what's getting caught up? Yep. I don't know what's getting caught up because one, I can't feel it, and two, I can't see it. So you kind of have to separate to actually.
Now that being said, this is sort of the trade-off. This is a funny trade-off with armor. Is in one respect, I miss my fans. Fans, I don't have fans, but like my elbow fans. Thanks, bro. I'm a fan of you too. I miss my elbow fans because it keeps strikes out of the joint. You got one in Roseville last year, and it shut your arm down for the whole tournament. Like you had to switch your shield arm to your righty, So that's the trade-off to not having those fans is when the armor's more low profile and it fits closer, it's better at grappling because it doesn't get hung up. It's closer to wearing a gi for you. The trade-off though is that taking hits is rough. Would you agree with that?
Depending on the armor, but generally, yeah. I mean, certain things are hard to do with armor, and then when you, I guess, make it more fancy in a way, or kind of the more things that jut out, it can definitely, the armor makes it really difficult. Same with what they're wearing.
Yeah.
So you may be wearing something that's really slim and low profile, but then they've got something that kind of juts out. Example. I have these huge like knees
that just grab everything on a
They're
leg.
battering rams. Like the plow on the front of an old school locomotive is what they are.
Yeah,
more
but
than
your
one
knees
occasion,
are huge.
I've had that get caught on somebody.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I threw him, awesome. And then all of a sudden it drags my one knee down to the ground. I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like that was dumb.
Yeah.
And so the more things that kind of jut out, but that knee protects me because I've taken access to that knee, and it's like, oh, glad I had that.
Yeah.
And so just there's a trade-off in everything. We've said this, the weapons you wear, the armor you wear, the whatever it be. Mm-hmm. You can't get everything in one package.
There's no such thing.
So you kind of just have to tailor it to what you want to work the best.
Yeah, and a good example of that is my samurai armor is nothing. It's super sleek and low profile. But if I post up on a fence in a 16v16 and I start taking Ukrainian halberds, like I'm gonna die. Like I'm gonna die a horrible, violent, traumatizing death.
Just don't get hit.
Yeah, just don't get hit. So I mean, I'm reluctant to get in the scrum in grapples. Because getting hit in that armor is gonna be rough.
I've had people actually say, watching us fight, what's he doing just standing there? It's like, well, he's got a reason. Well, one, he does not want to get caught up in that.
Yeah,
so
but
he's waiting
also,
for an opportunity.
Yeah, but also people like I have enough of a reputation. Like I hit gaps on purpose for a couple reasons. One, because it works. Two, so people watch me. So I can just stand there with my thumb in my ass. And two other people stand there with their thumbs in their ass watching me, and I'm catching my breath. They're nervous. I'm like,
dude, no, that's a great way to. You're literally tanking.
Yeah.
Right. That's at FitCon. No one had ever seen my black armor before.
Yeah.
And I had just oiled it. It was all beautiful and shiny. And then I had literally just taken out a rather famous member of the Striking Eagles with a single hit.
Okay.
And so they were sending two people after me, and I would just act like I was going to hit one of them, and then they'd be like, whoa. Yeah. And so one of me is tied up two of them, and then the rest of my team just...
Yeah.
It was great. It's great to just stand there and be effective at your job.
I do my best at doing that.
Which is that, and you're doing it. You're a flanker. That's your job, to tie them up and cause confusion in the ranks.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're wearing.
Yes.
Dictating what movements you can do, or what get...
I like this.
It does... Like you said, the elbows are a big example. If you wonder why I usually use a shield and a mace when I'm grappling, and it's because I can grab better. I like to have two separate arms to push and pull as I need. Yeah. A lot of people use those two-handed axes because they hook around, but the problem is I can't push one shoulder and pull another shoulder when I'm hooked onto someone's back with an axe. It's a lot harder to do that than independent arms.
If you have a two-handed axe, you should be hitting people with it. If you're grappling with it, go get something else.
Yeah. It's not a bad grappling tool. It has its weakness. Well, I'll tell you something I figured out with this. I just recently discovered it. You'll hook the back of a shoulder. You'll hook the back of a shoulder with the haft of your mace, and I can actually do that with my axe. I discovered, and it's pretty easy to keep the haft out of the way. You just rotate.
You also have a short axe.
Yeah, like a big long pole axe. That's a problem. Yeah,
that's what I'm referring to.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talking about a melee axe. That's
okay. Yeah, pole axes. Keep those in the mass battles.
So having a short axe and grappling with it. Yeah, I've seen you do that well because you put the axe in one hand. You can punch with it. You can kind of hook onto the back with the haft because it's short enough. Yeah. And then you're free to do whatever you want with the other hand.
This is actually a really useful thing. I discovered this from watching judo, where it's like you either grab the top of the sleeve or the bottom of the sleeve. Those holds kind of give you access to other potential things later in the grapple. So my adaptation of that is I'll actually the over grab, whatever that's supposed to be called. I'll just stick in the crook of my thumb the elbow fan. I just totally control. I'll either grab if they have a hafted weapon, I'll grab that. But I'll either grab their fan, or I won't really go under because there's nothing there to grab. But instead, I'll just put my hand just right on their pec, and it's just distance management.
So I do something similar with my shield, but instead of people are like, why don't you use your buckler? It's smaller, and it's for that reason. Because when I want to trap that arm, if I throw my forearm and my shield down, so I cover from the shoulder down to the elbow, I then have control of that whole shoulder and arm. And so I'm doing a similar tactic, but using the shield because I don't want to get rid of that. And so I can use the shield to pretty much do a similar, take control of a similar area of the body.
Okay.
And then I can swim freely with my mace. Because there are certain things, if I want to swim under with my shield, probably not going to happen. Or if I do, it's not getting out.
Yeah. You're going with them if they go.
So my shield's usually in like an over, some kind of over.
Yeah, it's like a trap or a, yeah.
And so then I'm, kind of free to do what I want with my mace. But having the two separate weapons lets me do that.
Yeah.
Going lower profile on my elbows has helped me. So when I need to swim around with my right arm, especially because it makes no difference on my shield arm, but on my other arm, it makes a big difference in how I grapple. And then I use a mace again because it's easier to move around, less things to get caught on. It's not like an axe. I've used an axe before, and
speaking of which, do you want one of my new maces that I'm making?
Well, I love maces, so yes.
Okay.
I would like to try out one of those. But again, there's less to get hooked on. I can't tell how many times someone else's axe, or the very few times I've used an axe myself, getting caught, especially on the straps on the arm. Oh,
it's annoying.
Then you get caught, and then you can't do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I had one guy run by me at FitCon, and I dropped my axe on his chainmail coif.
Yeah.
And he had let his kind of deteriorate, so there were these big old holes in it. So somehow the beard of my axe went through that hole, and it was so stuck in there. I just yanked on him and pulled him backwards, and he just fell into his back. But then I literally could not remove my axe from his coif without removing his. And I just had to run around like, someone give me another weapon. It was so annoying.
So when FitCon 2019, when we were up at the Salt Palace, that first round with the demons, I go head on with
he got his axe caught in your strap.
His axe caught in my elbow.
Yeah.
And the entire first round was us two just going at it because he didn't want to let go of his axe.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to keep using it.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything with his axe in my arm. And so we were just throwing each other around.
Yeah.
We were pretty much useless to the rest of either of our teams.
Yeah.
Because his axe was in my arm and he refused to let go.
Yeah.
Who was this?
This was Simon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was like, someone was holding on to my axe for dear life. I'm like, not quite.
It was your axe was holding on to me. And I couldn't do anything about it. So we just canceled each other out essentially that whole first round.
That's the funny thing, because that beard, that beard on that axe, the whole point of him having that is so he can actually grab the shoulder. He can hook the back of the shoulder. He does it all the time.
Well, it's on the inside of your elbow. It's a little hard to get out. Harder than the shoulder, for sure.
That's so funny.
But I use a mace because there's less to get caught on.
Yeah.
And you can't miss.
As a grappler, and a big thing is that you can't go to the ground with them.
Oh, so you can't, or then you're out.
Yeah, you can, but that's useless,
It's a wash at that point.
So the goal is when I go in to either one, take out a person and stay standing, or take out more than one person if I do go down. So I have to remain net positive.
Yeah.
Going into a match if I'm going to be a grappler.
Yeah.
And being a grappler, the chances of going down are they're pretty high. The amount of suicides, as we call them, in the sport.
That just bugs me.
That's a pet peeve of mine.
Dude.
It's I'm not good enough to throw you, so I'm just gonna monkey rape you and fall over.
Yeah.
It doesn't take any skill.
You literally hug the dude and you fall over. And hey, man, that's potentially good strategy if you're not a very good grappler and that other guy will eat your team. Fine, but
I've done it once on purpose.
Okay.
Like in a tournament.
Oh yeah, it was FitCon because we had the numeric advantage.
Well, it's a numeric advantage. We had to fight back to back. Justice was my other team guy, and we were fighting Cousteau from California. And I was like, okay, so Justice can't take him one-on-one. I can waste a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Or I can just go in and take us both out, and that's literally what I did. I just wrapped around his body and slammed us both to the ground. It kind of hurt, but at least I saved energy.
That dude fight falling on you? Yeah.
That's rough.
That's rough.
A big guy.
But I knew I could take it, and and I wanted to conserve the energy, so that was a lot less energy than trying to stay on my feet. But unlike other sports where I can go down, I can take a knee, I can't do that, and I need to be able to disengage as the throw is happening.
Yeah, it's getting clear. That's the hard part.
And so not having things jutting out from my armor, not having my weapon get caught on them, being able to just kind of slip off, it's absolutely necessary in a grapple. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, the chances that someone else takes you down with them, extremely high.
Have you ever thought about getting gauntlets like mine where the Bamm brace is articulated with the gauntlet?
Oh, have I thought about it?
Because it would fit your kit, and guess what never gets caught on me when people try to grab my arm?
Well, I have been asking someone to make a melee gauntlet for a while now, and We haven't actually gone to the shop and built it. Yes, I'm talking to you.
I do want to say I'd be careful. I'd be wary if I were you of having something that low profile around your wrist with how many hits you take, with how many bombs you take.
No. It was gonna cover part of my forearm.
Oh, that's right. That's
That
right.
big
Yeah, that big long cuff. That's like it's almost your van brace. The
Well,
cuff.
it's just I need a right one from.
Yeah.
Really. I mean that's a whole nother.
Yeah, that's another conversation.
Another conversation. So what are we on to next?
Okay. So what you took from judo and jiu-jitsu going back into melee armored grappling. That's
Is I understood the body mechanics a little bit better.
Okay.
And then
they're well developed for that.
yeah, I mean, armored combat as a sport is fairly new.
Oh, dude.
And there are far less people that do it. And so why not just learn from the well-developed sports and then learn what I can do in armor?
Yeah.
And I take the same mentality when I've cross-trained in HEMA, or I mean I haven't been doing a lot lately, but going into HEMA thinking, okay, I can't do all these movements with a sword, but if I understand the movements, I understand what the sword can do, and then try to translate it back into armor, I can learn what works, what doesn't work, what tweaks I need to make.
Speaking
to make
of which, you received high praise indeed from Chad and HEMA. He's like, normally people either hit hard or they move fast. But somehow, Grant hits extremely hard, so fast that I will sometimes just barely save myself inches from my head.
Yeah, we were talking shop after last week's podcast, and he had good things.
He had good things to say about you.
Well, I'm glad.
We'll rotate that back. Yeah,
But the idea of learning something that may not exactly be used for armored fighting, and then learning how to translate it back into. And so, like I said, with the sword, if I understand what I can do, what the sword is used for, and what it, then I can kind of experiment. What tweaks do I need to make to make this work? And so, going from judo, I wouldn't say jiu-jitsu is as jiu-jitsu is a evolution branch off from judo, but because we don't do any ground grappling, most of it is pretty much irrelevant. You might as well just stick to just more traditional judo. But going from judo, it's like, okay, I understand that a person has 2 feet, and so if I can get them to move their feet in this way, then I can throw their balance off and throw them. Yeah. How you do that? Okay, well, instead of grabbing a gi here, I can try to move my weapon or my hand in this position to achieve the same setup. Yeah. And so there's a lot of work you have to do on your end. Yeah. But if you understand what they have, and then try to tweak it and mold it to fit what the armor can let me do, then it'll work. Yeah, and so you got a really good you got a good leg sweep on me. Like is not long after we were in the dance studio when we were training in there, and you got me on a turn, and I went to put my leg out to catch me, and you had that. I mean, your foot was just like waiting for me, and it was great. I had nothing for it. I fell right down. Some things just won't work, or are too risky to do with armor on, but then a lot of it does, and you just kind of have to learn what translates and what doesn't. And to do that, you have to understand both. Yeah. You have to understand what the armor can do and how your body moves in the armor. Yeah. Where your balance is. And then you have to understand the judo and what the body can do without it, and what more movements you can do with all of that. And then so you kind of have to understand both to be able to translate and kind of take and give between the two, if that makes sense. It does. Totally makes sense. And you can make the same comparison with HEMA and armored fighting, or some other of other martial arts. It's just whenever you're crossing different styles or different sports, combat sports, you just kind of have to learn what can I take, what can't I take, and then apply what works. Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I've been saying it for a long time that, true principles will always manifest themselves, will always work their way to the surface and manifest, but it will manifest in a way that is influenced by the context of where it's coming from, So, a hip throw in armor looks a bit different than how it looks in a gi.
You know, that they do look very different, especially when you're not supposed to go down with your opponent. You know, for example, or if you're working in a different rule set. If you're working within a different rule set, then you'll see things like that change.
Mike's just a tiny bit loud, starting to give me a headache.
Okay, I will. I'll
Just the tiniest bit.
turn down the gain. How's that?
Nice.
Awesome. I'll even. Let's see. You're 3. How's that?
That's a little better, thank you.
Yeah. I can just turn down your gain. Turn down your headphones just a little bit. Well, I think this has been so far a pretty dang good conversation about the ins and outs of armored grappling from who I would classify as an expert. You're damn
Yes.
You're damn good at it.
You punch so thoroughly above your weight when
Yeah.
it comes to grappling that it's inspiring, quite honestly.
I'm not a light dude, believe it or not.
Well, you're not. Well, you're not
215, 220,
normally
215.
Yeah.
in armored combat. You're average.
Yeah. You're under average. American fighters are way bigger, as you're well aware. Yeah. But
Yeah,
But
not me.
people who don't know you, don't know your reputation, will look at you and be like, "Oh, I'll just walk over him and throw him to the ground." At which point, either they will end up being thrown to the ground, or they will be tied up with you, and then their buddy comes over, and you've tied up 2, even 3 people, and you don't go down. Not everyone gets to do that.
yeah.
I've actually had people just tell me, just go down.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go down. This is taking too long.
I
Yeah.
refuse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like being a little bit shorter, like I'm just shy of 6 feet and in armor.
And shorter in our sport,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I'm 5'11",
short.
but I'm not
You're
a
not short.
guy.
You're not a short guy at all.
I'm not tall. I'm just kind of average, and then in armor, I can sometimes.
But you're solid built.
I can look a little shorter than other people,
Yeah.
especially with a salé rather than like a big, tall, pointy one. But it does lead to being underestimated, and then people have a bad habit of seeing someone with a shield and a mace, and like, okay, they're not threatening to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, false. I can be threatening.
So I want you to keep thinking that for about 5 more seconds.
Yeah. It's effective. So what's the next subject?
Let's see. Next subject. We're going to move into doing fight reviews. I think we can just make that a separate video set so this doesn't stay too long. So
Okay.
yeah, we can just we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. We'll take a few minute breather, and then we'll move into doing fight critique. What do you guys think? Yeah. Sound good to everybody?
Yeah.
All right.
That's all right.
Well, folks, that is this episode for Fightsword Radio. We're talking about grappling. Thanks for listening, and here's our outro. Oh, that's the wrong one. Ha! I always screw that up. But bam!
Welcome to Fightsword Radio. I'm your host,